Person has requested that we start at 9:05 to allow people to join the meeting.
My honorable secretary, my respective one. Hey, between you and me, hey, this 9 o'clock, because we was still the bus just arrived here in Parliament at 9 because we go to start by I'm just in my office now. But for 9, if you can try maybe with like other committees, start at 9:30.
Okay, no, we'll consider that now.
It's just a request between you and me. Just think about it. 9:30 is better for all other committees because the buses arrived here 5 to 9, 9 o'clock. It depends on the traffic on the way.
Okay. We'll discuss that with the chairperson. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Morning, Chair. Morning, Chair. Morning, Chair.
Mr. Matonsin, can I check if I'm audible?
Yes, yeah, now you are audible. Chair, it's 6 minutes
Mr.
past
Matonsi?
9. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much.
We can start. Chairperson? Chairperson, we can start. It's 6 minutes past 9. Members, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure it's the chairperson has got difficulties. I'm just WhatsApping him.
Morning.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Mr. Matonsi, I think I have network challenges here. And good morning, everyone. In the meantime, can I request Honorable Ross to open the meeting?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you now, Chairperson. If you can go ahead and open the meeting.
Can you hear me, Mr. Matonsi?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks very much. I am struggling with the network. I'm trying to get Honorable Mudisi Mtse. I can't locate her. In case I get out of the meeting, just to welcome all members and all stakeholders in this important meeting. We have started the public hearing a year ago. We have now engaged with 8 provinces, and we have received sufficient response in terms of contribution to the proposed bill. We have met the different stakeholders, including those that are conducting oral submissions yesterday and today, and also today we're then meeting all the stakeholders that have been invited. We must indicate that this bill, the Parliament or the Portfolio Committee, have not taken a decision or deliberated to inform a position. That's why we're engaged in the public consultation with all stakeholders, so that at the point we're going to engage, we're informed within the framework of the Constitution of the Republic. And this gives us an opportunity to interact with yourselves, and you must be free in relation to raising issues with members. I must indicate that yesterday we had a good interaction or submission by all the stakeholders that was in attendance to this meeting. we take this as an important items so that it informs the discussion of both the houses of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. As you know that we're in session, you are going to be allocated 10 minutes to make your contributions to the meeting. We'll also request the members of the committee, if there are issues they want for clarity, to interact with yourselves. And also Advocate Malekate, who's from the Department of Home Affairs, to comprehensively respond because this bill has been tabled by the Department of Home Affairs after consultation on the white paper and also development of the bill. Obviously, we know that as we engage with the public hearing throughout the provinces, we do conduct, or the Parliamentary Education Unit conduct public education at the time the committee interface with members of the community who are able to get objectives, submissions. At this moment, all of us, we are fully aware on the draft content of the bill in terms of all the chapters that seeks to rationalize all the existing marriage laws, but also noting that it was out of a constitutional court judgment in relation to some of the provisions in the Marriage Act that are inconsistent with the Constitution of the Republic. So with those few words, we'll then invite Mr. Matonsi to introduce all the stakeholders in attendance, and also if there's any apologies that need to be presented before the committee so that we are able to note. Mr. Matonsi?
Yes, Chairperson, from my side, from the committee side, I did not receive any apology. And then with the stakeholders that are in the meeting is the Women's Legal Center, they are here. Be true to me.
Sorry, Mr. Matonsi, can we do the same exercise we did last time? Can we establish that they're in attendance?
Okay. Okay, we'll start with the Women's Legal Center. Are they in the meeting?
Morning, honorable members. Yes, I'm in the meeting.
And then Be True to Me, are they in the meeting?
Morning, I'm in the meeting.
Okay. Sunni Ulama Council Gauteng, are they in the meeting? Okay, not yet. And then the Hate Crimes Working Group.
Good day, colleagues. Yes, I'm in the meeting.
We are church.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
And then the South African Council of Churches. Yeah. National House of Traditional Leaders.
And Khoisan leaders.
Yeah, and Khoisan leaders.
Good morning, Chairperson. I'm Abraham Sitole. I'm waiting for the Deputy Chairperson of the House to join, but I'm present.
Okay. Islamic Forum Azadville. Okay. Those are the only organizations that are in. Probably the others will join us as we go with the meeting. Thanks. Over to you. Chairperson? Mr. Ross?
Yes, Eddie?
Yes, I think the chairperson is struggling with the network. If you can just take over.
Okay. So we are now at the introductions of the guests. We've done apologies. Now we're doing introductions. Are there any other introductions, Eddie?
The only one would be that we've got the department. Moses Malaket is here in the meeting from the department. And then also Mr. Tulan Mavuso and Muzinjoko from the department. We also do have Zenani from Parliament Legal Service that is here. Yeah, that's all now.
Okay, thank you. So with welcome and apologies handled, I think we'll commence with our first presenters, which is the Women's Legal Centre.
Yes, Mutile.
Morning, may I comment?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
you can proceed.
Thank you. Morning, Chairperson and honorable members. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to make oral submissions on the marriage bill. As the Women's Legal Centre, we welcome the committee's effort to rationalize the marriage laws pertaining to various types of marriages in our country. Next slide, please. I think for us, what's very important is that for legislative bodies to note that patriarchy is deeply embedded in our society and impacts the way in which marriages are negotiated, consented to, and solemnized. And that is why it is very important that we note the committee's goal, the bill's goal to provide for recognition of all marriages, to provide for requirements for monogamous and polygamous marriages. However, we note that this cannot be done at the expense of diverse identities of women who wish to have their marriages protected under the bill. And as well, this cannot be done at the expense of regressing and undermining efforts that have been made to address inequalities and discrimination in our country. You can go to the next slide. The Women's Legal Centre has noted 4 main overarching concerns with the bill in particular. And the first one would be the omission of domestic partnership. Although the state has continuously recognized its obligation for it to recognize and regulate domestic partnership, as far as in 2001 with the South African Law Reform Commission in the issue paper, we note that the marriage bill continues to exclude or makes any reference to domestic partnership. And with light of the census that is continuously conducted, it has been noted by Stats SA that we have over 1 million people living in unregistered domestic or universal partnerships. And it is our recommendation that we have the definition, we have domestic partnerships to be included in the marriage bill and to make provision for them. And the definition that we would like to put forward is one that is in line with current litigation that is ongoing in our courts, where the courts have come to a conclusion that a domestic partnership is an interpersonal relationship between 2 or more people who live together and share domestic life without being married. Our second concern is the ongoing challenges of registering customary marriages. So Section 13 of the bill appears to make registration compulsory, but in doing so, it fails to deal with circumstances that are envisaged in Section 49 of the RCMA, which provides that non-registration does not invalidate the customary marriage. So it is our submission that the legislature then deliberately ensured that Section 31B of the RCMA was left open to allow people to give context to the section in accordance with their own customs and procedures as the developments change over time, that our jurisprudence and the court impact in a manner in which customary law develops over time and in how it's actually interpreted. So this reflects at the time that the legislator was very interested in centering a more flexible living nature of customary law that is recognized and protected by the Constitution. Although we welcome the approach to women having legal certainty and compulsory registration being put in front, but we just would like to caution that in this framework, the RCMA requires registration, but it recognizes that tradition, customs, and other practices would have taken place during the solemnization period, that the marriage were in fact concluded between the parties. So therefore, registration should seeks to provide proof of the existence of the marriage and it's an official record, and therefore a cautious approach is therefore advised in the instance to ensure that existing unregistered customary marriages are recognized as valid despite not being registered, while creating an enabling framework that will encourage registration of all marriages, including those that were concluded before the bill itself. The second one is highlighting that we've noted that there has been an omission of the application of the Act, age determination, consent, and the age of majority. So you can move to the next slide. Apologies. With regards to age determination, we are concerned that the section on age determination, which was in the previous draft bill, is omitted from the current bill before Parliament. Child marriage is a serious concern, and the inclusion of it in the previous draft affirmed the state's commitment to its obligation to address and eradicate child marriages. Its inclusion made a strong statement to society and to those who solemnize marriages that there is an obligation on everyone to ensure that we protect children. So therefore, setting the age of consent at 18 and over ensures that we can begin to address discrimination and impact of child marriages on the lives of girls in particular. We therefore recommend that Chapter 2 of the bill should begin with the language contained in what is now Section 4 to ensure that the age of consent is first stipulated and serves as an introduction to the chapter. This can be followed by what is now Section 5 in the current bill, which sets out requirements on the marriage officers to determine the age of consent to ensure that there's compliance with the age of consent prior to solemnizing the marriage. We also welcome Chapter 7 and the inclusion of an offense related to marriage and the penalties associated therewith. The other one would be consent, which is omitted in the current bill. So this is also omitted, which was under Section 6 under the draft bill, which was circulated in 2023. The importance of providing clarity on consent is more than just simply the age of consent, but this requires that the parties entering into the marriage have all given their consent in the prescribed form or manner. This would then encourage free and informed consent and an understanding of the implications of the contract of a marriage that are being entered into. The consent provision, as suggested in the draft marriage bill, had shortfalls, but not directly dealing with the prescribed form or manner. We presume that it will form part of the regulations to the legislation once it's passed. However, such an approach is not ideal, as an ordinary person does not really engage with the regulation, so its absence leads to a lot of legal uncertainty. We also recognize that Section 15(1) of the Constitution provides that everyone has the right to freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion, but these rights are not absolute and can be limited where justifiable to do so. The envisaged marriage legislation provides a unique opportunity to embrace the diversity of South African society, but at the same time, we must be cautious to ensure that we do not create spaces within society where discrimination would be allowed to flourish and hide behind the freedom envisaged in Section 15(1) of the Constitution. Then we have age of majority. So with the age of majority, the proposed draft bill had undertaken a strong stance on ensuring that individuals entering into marriage had to have reached the age of majority. So this required that marriage officers were of the age of majority. However, the updated bill no longer places any form of obligation on marriage officers to ensure that compliance with the section. And we would question this can be if marriage officers are fulfilling a state function. They need to accept the responsibility that comes with an important position within a state framework as registration, as it is important. It is an important function in respect to the integrity of the National Population and Marriage Register. We therefore recommend that the section previously in the draft marriage bill that categorically stated that the age of majority as is 18 and older should be included in the bill, and that the language is inserted to make it clear that there are no longer any provisions in our laws for parental consent or the consent of a minister that can enable a valid marriage of anyone below the age of 18. Next slide, please. I will now be turning to our general comments with regards to the bill in particular. So we also welcome the inclusive language that is used in the preamble of the marriage bill, but just also recommend that it explicitly affirm that gender includes gender identity. And this is in light of current legislation that is currently taking place, where parties approach the Equality Court to get a declarator to declare that gender in the Constitution actually includes gender identity and expression. This will ensure clarity and protection, and it will ensure that recognition of all marriages across religious, cultural, and sexual diversity, including both monogamous and polygamous unions, are protected. We also, therefore, have serious concern with the definition of customary marriage in the current bill, as it is very narrow, and we kindly recommend that the definition that is currently in the RCMA be the definition that we use moving forward. And then we also recommend that Section 3 is amended to express to expressly recognize that marriages concluded under custom, tradition, or religion, including monogamous, polyamorous, and polygamous relationship, as well as existing life partnerships. This amendment would ensure that all relationships excluded from legal recognition are protected, are afforded certainty, and are protected under the Act. And then here we also we know that the Act requires consent from existing spouses for subsequent marriages. However, the bill should ensure that all polygamous, polyamorous, and polygynous marriages are included, and that existing procedural safeguards for changing of the matrimonial property regimes currently available to monogamous couples are also extended to alternative types of relationships. Then we have chapter 4, which emphasizes that legal recognition and regulation of a marriage is a constitutional state function. While we know that the Civil Union Amendment Act removed the discriminatory provision of Section 6, which allowed marriage officers to refuse same-sex marriages and to register their marriages, we are just a bit concerned that this bill in particular introduces an exclusionary dispensation for same-sex and same-gender unions, failing to recognize SOGSC diversity and perpetuating barriers to marriage and equality. It is noteworthy to also say that we welcome the designation of private individuals as marriage officers under Section 11, while emphasizing that regardless of their religious, customary, and traditional or secular affiliation, they are performing a state function. Chair, I note that I'm a bit over time. I don't know if I can just be given an opportunity to just conclude at this point, so that I don't eat into the other speakers' time. So I will just conclude with this last slide to say that Chapter 5 of the bill also addresses registration of marriages and emphasizes that spouses have a collective responsibility to comply with the law and register their marriages. But we note that women disproportionately bear the burden of registration, particularly when men may benefit from non-registration, and legislation should reflect the lived realities of diverse marriage practices. We recommend extending the registration period from 14 to 30 days to accommodate customary practices and religious practices, clarifying that the section also applies to Hindu, Muslim, and other unrecognized religious and customary marriages, providing a prescribed form and process for registration. We also note that propriety consequences of a marriage and contractual capacity of spouses. This section highlights the need for clarity and coordination regarding the propriety consequences of a marriage and contractual capacity of spouses. We then also recommend that the committee also engages with the South African Law Reform Commission to avoid siloed legislative development processes. To reduce ambiguity, the section should be divided into two parts: one addressing marriages concluded before the new legislative framework, and lastly, another addressing prospective marriages. And in conclusion, it is our view that in our submission that law reform must be measured against constitutional obligations and not administrative convenience. The law must reflect how people live, not merely how the state registers relationship. It is for this reason that an intersectional approach is imperative to ensure that the Act achieves substantive equality and affords meaningful protection to all persons. Thank you.
Thank you. The next presenter is Be True to Me.
Thank you. Thank you. Just waiting for the slides. Thank you. You can go to slide 4, please. Oh dear. Oh, you can go to the next slide. Thanks. Thank you. The next one and yeah, the next slide. Thank you. Just a little thing here. We all see things differently. Next slide, please. Oh, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we're a trans organization, and for gender diverse people, we clearly recognize the Constitution as non-discriminatory. We all have a Bill of Rights, and that equity is important to all. We also acknowledge that Section 15 protects freedom of religion, belief, and opinion, including the freedom not to believe. It is a freedom to choose and practice one's own belief, not a license to dictate religion or interpretation to others. Next slide, please. We know we are a rainbow nation, and our diversity covers a multiplicity of culture, ethnic backgrounds, and religious beliefs. We all have different upbringings, culture, and beliefs, and we are all intersectional, meaning that we come from different backgrounds and that we can cross multiple backgrounds. Next slide, please. So we understand that this act is to give marriage a legal framework in which to work. Marriage is therefore a legal union of two people or more to govern assets, debts, property, etc. We just also want to acknowledge that children are not governed by the Marriage Act, but by the Children's Act, and that having to get married because a child is involved is not covered by the Act, but other statutes. And so a child that's born outside of a marriage has exactly the same rights to care, contact, and maintenance. We also know that commitment vows are between people and not dictated by the Marriage Act. A legal contract between parties defines the commitment, and community of properties are the default legal contract. Next slide, please. We also acknowledge a marriage officer from the state may not discriminate on their own beliefs, and that's been cited many times with the Civil Union Amendment Act. We support a marriage officer from an organization may limit that officiation within their own context, and so this may not be discriminatory or against the Constitution, but we do acknowledge that some officers are within a certain context. One thing we would recommend that in the case of a marriage officer being silenced by a church or a denomination, that they may choose on their own to solemnize a marriage, whether that is in their personal capacity as a marriage officer and not necessarily under the institution. Next slide, please. So we would like to support the Act. We note, as others have mentioned, that the alteration of a gender marker under Act 49 of 2003 has had many court rulings in the High Court that the marriages aren't dissolved or forced divorces, etc. And there's no mention made in this act to how this is handled, and we just wish to remind everyone that that should be included. We also note that Section 6 around polygamy and polyamorous relationships is probably unconstitutional, as it specifies only men with multiple wives, and this is discriminatory against women, transgender diverse, and queer people for equal access to multi-party marriage. The other thing that we not seen here is the choice of surname, and that was part of the Concord ruling a few weeks back, that a man may take a woman's surname, and this may also then come through regulations. And we would also like to submit that community of property not be the default governing law, and parties must be made aware of their options by the marriage officer. Thank you. We support faith-based organization who have inclusion of non-hetero, non-binary, inclusive marriages. Inclusive-based orgs need to be included in the official same-gender, intersex, and non-binary and gender-diverse relationships. And we also understand that there is no universal interpretation of beliefs or scriptures or culture, etc. Next slide, please. We support the marriages between majors. Children marriage is outlawed in the Act, and that we wish to just emphasize that no one should be forced into marriage because they had an oopsie, as somebody pointed out yesterday, but that the age of majority and that they are able to make a commitment. And so we are full supporters of consent and that everyone understands the process. So we just want to emphasize that. And one thing that is not specified is that all official languages can be used. And we just also want to emphasize that no one gender is the legal head of the household. This was, I think, in the white paper or the green paper. So we just want to emphasize that. Next slide, please. We want to thank the department for taking our previous feedback into consideration on the green and white paper. And we also look to work further with Home Affairs, the Parliament, and other parties to ensure that the gender diverse community is not forgotten in this process. And we would just like to remind Home Affairs of their current obligations to provide services, and that the current gatekeeping, particularly of civil union marriage officers, is a challenge, and that we would ask the committee just to make sure that we continue to operate until this act comes into force. I think I went a little quicker than my 10 minutes there. And so I'm happy with that submission so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next presenters are Suni Ulama, Council, Gauteng.
Chairperson, it looks like they just joined now. I just accepted them now. So I'm not sure if they'll be ready.
Can the Suni Ulama Council, Gauteng, confirm whether you're ready or not? Okay, can I confirm whether hate crime working group is ready?
I am ready.
Okay, then Eddie will just switch those two presentations.
Thank you.
So you may proceed.
I'm just waiting to see the presentation.
He can assist if he has them.
Sorry?
Just asking one of my colleagues because I can't see them on my screen now.
Okay.
Just quickly.
Yeah, we'll just give a minute for them to switch the presentation.
Sure.
You will still have your full 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going there now.
Thank you very much. Good morning, honourable members and also colleagues in the room. Thank you for this opportunity to present. I am Kim Lithgow. I am chair of the Hate Crimes Working Group. Can I have the next slide, please? The Hate Crimes Working Group is a national coalition of 26 organisations across South Africa advocating for the full implementation of the newly assented Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Act. As you can see, we are a multi-sectoral group that comprises of organisations from lawyers to sex workers to LGBT groups to migrant groups as well. Thank you. Next slide, please. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. This is an ideal set before us by Nelson Mandela, and I believe it is something that we need to do where we protect not only our own rights, but that we protect the rights of others. Equality is not negotiable, nor is dignity conditional. The Single Marriage Bill brings our marriage framework into full alignment with the Constitution that we all serve, and a single law for all marriages sends a powerful message that every union, regardless of culture, religion, sexual orientation, or tradition, is equal before the law. Next slide. Why this matters for human rights. The most important part of hate crime legislation is the prevention of bias, inequalities, and discrimination, and often discrimination, stigma, invisibility, and legal ambiguity contribute to vulnerability, especially for LGBTQIA individuals, women, children, and people in customary or religious marriages. A single unified marriage law would remove the structural inequalities that embed social stigma, giving all couples full recognition, full rights, and full protection under the law. By affirming all unions and all families, we recommit to our constitutional values of dignity, equality, and freedom. Next slide, please. The current law around unions are fragmented and leave vulnerable persons unprotected. So a single piece of legislature governing unions will ensure that all persons are treated equally. The bill also removes legal inconsistency between civil unions, civil marriages, traditional marriages, and religious marriages, and it guarantees that LGBT couples and other marginalized groups receive equal recognition, not secondary status. There are possible gaps as outlined by the Women's Legal Centre and also by Be True to Me and other colleagues. We appreciate the inclusive language that is used currently in the bill and ask that it be continued throughout the whole bill. We ask that there must be equal treatment and protections for both men and women, as can be seen in instances of polygamy and polyandry. We also note that there's no mention of transgender, intersex, or gender diverse persons. We know that transgender couples experience challenges if they are already married as a heterosexual couple, and then as they transition, we know that they then become married as a same-sex couple, and this does provide considerable challenges for them and legally as well. So we ask that this be considered and that the committee would make sure that instead transgender people are respected and made sure that these issues are smoothed over for them in the new marriage bill that is proposed. We also see that there's no reference to refugees, asylum seekers, or migrants, and we ask that the committee also take these into consideration. Because all these groups currently experience unique and specific challenges around the legal aspects, at least, of their unions. I'd like to address some of the concerns that have been raised. For starters, there's no restrictions on heterosexual couples being married in any of the current marriage frameworks, nor in the new marriage bill, and nor should there be any restrictions on other unions that are diverse or different in any way. People are free to choose their partners and their religions, and these are protected in South Africa. The bill, to my knowledge, does not compel any faith to alter doctrine or sacramental practice. In fact, across all faiths, religious marriages remain religious. They remain religious commitments and are an important but a separate aspect of a legal union. This bill serves to merely govern the state to treat all unions as equal, and I believe that this would make it in compliance with the Constitution of South Africa. In conclusion, the new marriage bill appears to remove inequalities, respect diversity, respect equality, dignity, and freedom of choice. And while some edits and additions are needed to ensure that the needs of all minorities are adequately met, this bill sets the stage to end bias and discrimination that we are currently seeing towards diverse couples and different families. So we, as a Hate Crimes Working Group, look forward to a more just and equal marriage framework in South Africa, which will contribute to the social cohesion of our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eddie, is the Sunni Ulama Council Gauteng online?
I've admitted some. I'm not sure if these are the presenters, if they can just indicate if they are in the meeting. Sunni Ulama, I can see that they are in the meeting, Chair.
Can this Sunni Ulama Council Gauteng please indicate if you're ready to present?
Okay, good morning.
Okay, thank you, Mufti Usman. Can you just slide the presentation and then you can proceed? You may proceed. I think you're on mute.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. Good morning. Can I proceed?
We're just struggling to hear. There's a very loud noise in the background that is drowning out your voice.
Is it okay now?
Yes, it is. And we can see the presentation, so you may proceed.
Chairperson?
Eddie?
Yes, I'm just suggesting if you can move over to the next presenter and then we come back to them so that they can set up their system very well.
Okay, let's do that. I'm requesting the Sunni Ulama Council to...
Can start now.
There's too much background noise. The suggestion is carried that you please just find a place, a quieter place, and then we will go on to the next presenter and then come back to you thereafter.
I think.
Okay, so we're going to move on to We Are Church. Is We Are Church in the meeting and ready to present?
Yes, I am ready, sir.
Thank you. Eddie, do we have the presentation?
I'm presenting just, I don't have a
Okay.
presentation, sir. I'm just presenting as
Okay,
I
you may
am.
proceed. Okay,
Thank
go for
you.
it.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Chair and committee members, fellow citizens. And thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jane Codrington, and I'm speaking to you today as the lead pastor of We Are Church. We are a progressive, inclusive Christian faith community based in Johannesburg. And very simply, we are committed to following the ways of Jesus and putting love at the center of all that we do, and upholding the dignity and justice and equal value of all God's people, including LGBTQI people. I've come today to speak as a faith community rooted in Scripture, not specifically as a special interest lobby group, but to say that we are a group rooted in Scripture, conscience, history, and compassion, offering an alternative Christian voice that affirms the full inclusion of all people in marriage, faith, and community. And we welcome this bill, and we urge the committee to go ahead and pass it with certain safeguards, because we believe that it recognizes not only constitutional justice, but also gospel values of love, equality, and human dignity. Dignity that God calls us to live. And why we believe that this bill matters is for legal equality, inclusion, and clarity. First of all, consolidation and clarity. The bill provides and replaces a fragmented patchwork of marriage laws, civil marriage, customary marriage, civil unions, with one single inclusive coherent statute. It provides universal recognition. Under the bill, all marriages, regardless of language, culture, religion, custom, sexual orientation, will be recognized. And equality before the law, the bill ensures spousal rights, including inheritance, property rights, maintenance, decision-making, and dissolution, applying equally to all couples, removing artificial distinctions and historic legal exclusion of some unions. And it also provides for the protection of the vulnerable by codifying a minimal legal marriage age of 18 and explicitly prohibiting child marriages. And the bill advances the protection of children and aligns with South Africa's international human rights obligations. So recognition of previously marginalized marriages, the bill also expands recognition to religious and customary marriages that previously lacked uniform legal protection, thereby giving dignity and security to many families that were previously excluded. So in summary, it represents a progressive, fair, and dignified legal framework, one that affirms equality, simplifies legal complexities, and protects the vulnerable, and recognizes the diversity of love, culture, religion, and identity. But as a Christian community, we believe that the gospel invites us into a vision of love, justice, and compassion and inclusion. And here is why. Because from scripture, theology, and conscience, we support marriage equality and the bill. Because the Bible is complex and culturally rooted and meant to be interpreted with care and humility. And we believe that the scripture is God-inspired and sacred, but also humanly transmitted, written over many, many centuries in different languages, in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic, deeply shaped by cultures, social norms, and contexts far removed from ours, and as such, interpretation must respect context, history, and evolving human understanding. And you may draw a parallel with other issues that many Christians once justified slavery. They denied women full equality or excluded even entire people groups, only later to repent and reinterpret scripture, recognizing God's wider vision for justice and human dignity. And this same humility and willingness to listen to God's Spirit must now inform how we read passages related to sexuality and marriage. And so those clobber passages that were traditionally used against LGBTQI people do not stand up to careful historical, linguistic, and contextual analysis. And so those so-called prohibitive texts drawn from Leviticus and Genesis 19 and certain Pauline letters refer not to loving, consensual, long-term same-sex relationships, but rather to exploitative, coercive, cultic, or even idolatrous sexual practices. And the ancient Greek terms behind those modern translations were shaped by context and didn't address stable, committed same-sex relationships as we understand them today. And many mainstream biblical scholars recognize that a literalist reading misinterprets the original intent of those texts. So therefore, to use those passages to exclude LGBT people while ignoring their humanity, dignity, and capacity for love is neither theologically honest nor consistent with the spirit of the gospel. So the core message of Jesus and the Christian gospel is love, inclusion, justice, and transformation. And Jesus consistently challenged exclusion, lifted up the marginalized, and welcomed those rejected by religious legalism. He prioritized love, mercy, dignity, and rigid rule-keeping. And the early Christian community, diverse, multicultural, inclusive of Jews and Gentiles, challenged narrow identity boundaries, offering a new humanity in Christ, united not by culture or gender, but by love. And in our time, God calls us to broaden the table and embrace new understandings of this, and to affirm that all people, regardless of who they love and how they love, are made in God's image. So marriage as covenant is not just biology or procreation. We believe marriage is not simply about procreation or fitting a cultural template. It's about covenantal mutual love, fidelity, support, companionship, and shared life. And when people commit to each other, supporting each other through seasons of joy and hardship, that needs to be seen as sacred, regardless of biological gender or one's ability to procreate. So denying same-sex couples that possibility is essentially a denial of their dignity. And so as theology has been dynamic and is developing over centuries, and our interpretations of scripture with regards to slavery, women's roles, race, and many other social issues, to declare a fixed and final universal biblical view on sexuality is really to misunderstand how faithful Christian reflection works. The Spirit of God moves, communities learn, communities and cultures evolve over time. And today, thousands of Christian churches and theologians worldwide affirm LGBTQI inclusion, not as a political concession, but as faithful reading of the scriptures. And that's what we at We Are Church stand for, not departing from faith, but deepening it. So this bill would mean for our nation, it would signal that South Africa is committed to being a rainbow nation where diversity, identity, love, and culture is celebrated, not legislated away. It would mean and offer safety, security, dignity for thousands and thousands of families whose love until now has been deemed outside of traditional marriage, and enabling them to access inheritance, maintenance, property rights, child rearing stability, and recognition before God, family, and state. And it would send a strong message that faith and justice are not opposed, that Christian faith can and should be a force for inclusion, especially for those who've been marginalized historically. And it would reduce stigma, prejudice, and violence against the LGBTQI community by grounding their relationships and family setups and normalizing those in law, the love that they already have, and integrating them into the moral fabric of society. And it provides for legal clarity for all sorts of marriages: civil, religious, customary, polyamorous, monogamous, same-sex. And it simplifies burdens for individuals, couples, families, and it reduces legal confusion for people and undue burdens from faith communities who have to perform marriages and then lacking the uniform legal recognition. We do have concerns. The one is the protection for religious freedom. While we believe civil recognition of marriage must be universal, we recognize that some faith communities may object to performing same-sex marriages on theological grounds, and the final law should respect the right of religious officiants to decline solemnizing marriages conflicting with their convictions, so long as there remains reasonable access for couples who want to marry. This balances equality under civil law with respect for religious diversity. And there needs to be obviously safeguards against child marriage, forced marriage and exploitation. The bill's minimum age of 18 is crucial, and we urge clear enforcement of this, public awareness campaigns, and social support for vulnerable youth to ensure the ban on child marriage is absolutely essential. And there should be equal protection in polygamous marriages with particular equity for women. If the bill allows polygamous arrangements, it must guarantee full and equal protection for all spouses in terms of property rights, maintenance, and child rights. And legal reform should be accompanied by education for citizens, families, and communities. As a Christian leader and citizen, I believe that laws should reflect not only the letter of human justice, but the heart of divine love. The love of a God who created all people in God's image, who binds us in compassion, and who calls us to love one another, and who honors the dignity of every human being. And in a country that bears the scars of apartheid, injustice, discrimination, and exclusion, and in a world where many form relationships and families outside of traditional norms, this bill does offer hope. It affirms love, commitment, and dignity, transcending culture, gender, sexual orientation, and custom. And it births a more inclusive, just, and compassionate South Africa. And it gives me hope. And we at We Are Church pledge our support. We pledge our prayers and our voices to building that future. And I call on this committee to act courageously and faithfully and justly. And we give you our support. And I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, at this point in the agenda, we would have had questions for clarification. I think yesterday it worked very well to have all the questions at the end, that all the stakeholders can comment on all the questions. Are there any objections to that? Leaving the questions to the end.
That's correct. That's correct, Chairperson.
Thank you, colleagues. Then I will call again on the Sunni Ulama Council, Gauteng. Are they ready?
Yes, good morning. Is it
Right,
clear
thank
now?
you.
Thank
Yes, it
you.
is.
I think I will go without slides. It's okay. I got some points which I would like to discuss. So it's okay if you do not share the screen. Sunni
Okay,
Ulama
thank you.
Council is a body of Muslim scholars, theologians, and by the grace of Allah, we are working for almost last 3 decades, rather more than 3 decades, and serving in different parts of the country. And obviously, we face all these challenges and as people's queries. So, Alhamdulillah, we are playing a pivotal role in this marriage bill as well, that we tried our best to put our efforts and services, whatever we could do. There are some concerns in this current marriage bill, which I would like to mention. Number one is age restriction. There are two things. In age restriction. Number one, because of our religion, that obviously it is contrary to our religion that to put age restriction. And secondly, on the ground in this country, we see that many schools, we see especially the girls in matric, every matric class in every school, there are few girls, those are falling pregnant. And if we see the number will obviously increase if we include all the schools in South Africa. So in that way, what we see that, for example, let's say a girl is 17 or 16-year-old and she fall pregnant and she really want to get married to the same man, and the Lord do not allow, or there is a long process which is difficult for her to follow. So what's going to happen that in that case, the girl will be without any support, the child will be without any support, and the child will grow without a father, meaning with single parent, and possible after 1-2 years when she can get married according to the law, and that time that man has changed his mind. Second thing, we have concerns about consent, like getting a consent from the first wife to get married like second time. And the third thing, polyandry. It is against of Islam that one lady cannot get married more than one man at a time. And at the same time, I would like to mention one thing that, for example, that we see many birth certificates, especially in townships, have only the mother's name, because unfortunately the men, they are not supportive to the ladies, to the child. And if we say that, okay, a girl, she can get married to 3 or 4 men, and tomorrow it's gonna be a problem that she say, this is your child, he deny, she goes to the second one, may he deny, and that's go on. And what's gonna happen in such a case, really we will face many issues, because if we say DNAs, obviously it's not possible in township for every lady to go on that route, and because of obviously financial situation. So what's gonna happen that again the women rights are in a question mark there, because she have, in that situation she have no support, because nobody is there to look after child. And we can understand through what trauma she can go at that time, that she has 2 husbands or 3 husbands, and all they are denying that this is not my child. We can understand the situation of a lady at that point. So that's why we don't recommend that polyandry. And the fourth thing, what Sunni Ulama Council is really, that worrying, have concerns about that, the consequences of marriage, because the marriage will, yes, speak about the registration of the marriage and certain rules and regulations, but what is happening after marriages, for example, the Divorce Act, the inheritance law, and there are so many such things. For example, that if a Muslim lady, she have to obtain a divorce, the rules, regulations might differ, and there are differences in certain things, and the way of separation, divorcing, the type of divorces, and the rulings on that, inheritance, and the distribution of the assets of both parties. So there are so many things in consequences which really that we have concerns. In other words, even Muslim marriages are registered, but unfortunately in that way, Muslim women and Muslim men, they do not have the rights, according to their religion, what they're supposed to have. And the fifth thing, what we are concerned that about marriage officers, because yes, there are marriage officers amongst Muslims as well. But if any marriage officer, I'm not saying that only Muslim, any marriage officer, any religion he have, I think he should not be forced to solemnize such marriages which contradict to their respective religions, because many religions do not allow certain type of marriages which are in the Bible. So these are the 5 things that what we would like to mention. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Is the South African Council of Churches ready? Can I then call on the National House of Traditional Leaders and Khoisan leaders? Are they ready?
Yes, we are ready, Chair.
Thank you. Is there a presentation, Eddie?
Chairperson, they sent only the submission that they made when we did the advertisement. So I'm not sure if they to show it or not.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, proceed.
Is it the same thing?
Okay. Then in that case, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all the participants in the meeting. I am Nkosi Mavuso, the Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders. Chair, let's firstly appreciate the fact that the bill was referred to the House for comments. Our view, Chair, as Africans on marriage and family, traditional leaders view marriage in the African tradition as the joining of two families through the union of a man and a woman and their children. Family is very important and not individuals, as families are the building blocks of African society. Most people live in households that includes not only their mother, father, and children, but also their extended families, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and others. In terms of tradition and culture, there are no orphans and parentless children are cared for. Family plays a central role. So coming to the comments, Chair, the House recommends the Omnibus or Umbrella Marriage Act as a legislative option in order to enable regulation of all marriages, civil unions, customary marriages, and other marriages. On clause 4, on the proof of identity, we agree on the determination of the age of prospective spouses by means of a birth certificate, identity card, and a valid passport in case of foreigners. We note with agreement the changes in the bill that seeks to eradicate child marriages and arranged marriages. Clause 5, subsection 1C states that on monogamous marriages, says that for a monogamous marriage to be valid, the prospective spouses must be of sound mind to enter into a marriage. It is our view that it should be clear in the bill that a person should have an unsound mind if they have been so declared by a competent court or authority. Clause 5.2 provides for a monogamous marriage entered into in accordance with custom or religion to be valid, that it should have been negotiated and entered into or celebrated in accordance with the respective custom and religion. It is our recommendation that it must be clarified in the bill that a valid monogamous marriage entered into in accordance with custom could be concluded without full payment of lobola, because traditionally indoda ilobola iyiyofa. Requirements for polygamous marriages. Clause 6, subsection C states that for a polygamous marriage to be valid, the prospective spouses must have sound mind to enter into a marriage. It is our view that it should be clear in the bill that a person should have a sound mind if they have been so declared by a competent court. Clause 6, subsection 2A provides for the husband in a marriage who wishes to enter into a further marriage after the commencement of this act to obtain written consent from his wife or wives. And in the case of a royal family, the consent must be in accordance with customs and traditions of such a family. Clause 6, designation of marriage officers. The bill provides in Clause 8, subsection 3C, for any person who holds a responsible position in a traditional council or a quiescent council to be designated as a marriage officer. We commend the department for having recognized traditional councils and persons holding a responsible position in the Tribunal Council to be designated marriage officers. Premarital counsel. The House recommends premarital counsel should be taken to ensure that the institution of marriage is supported. Hoping that the comments by the National House and Khoisan leaders will be considered. I thank you, Chair. The submission has been forwarded to the committee. I thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Can we get confirmation that the South African Council of Churches is online? Then may I ask if the Islamic Forum Azadville is online?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Is there a presentation? There it comes.
Yes, there is.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Is it possible to make the presentation a little bigger? Thank you. The Honourable Presiding Chair, the Honourable Members of this Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, and esteemed participants of this virtual meeting, I greet each and every one of you from the depth of my heart. My name is Faisal Amiruddin, the convener of Islamic Forum Azadville, also known as Faisal Kamka. And there's a reason why I've included this, which I'll come to a little later. And as a representative of Islamic Forum Azadville, an Islamic advocacy group for the last 30 years and more, we have made various governmental sectors, we have engaged with various government sectors with regard to the recognition of Muslim marriages. Today we are at a point where it was when the late former president of this country, the late Nelson Mandela, had instructed the late Honorable Minister of Justice, Mullah Umar, to attend to this wrong. The wrong here is non-recognition of Muslim marriages. In our view, there can only be three reasons for this stagnation. One, there is no political will on the part of the government to remove this injustice. Two, there is an unwillingness to implement Section 15.1 of the Constitution together with its spirit. An example, at an Mbizo held and organized by the Department of Home Affairs at Kempton Park, where the then Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Aaron Motsoaledi, was present, a clear rejection of the single statute was made. Apparent, and in turn, the omnibus option was touted as a favorite option. This favorite option has subsequently been removed from the table. And then points our third view, a combination of the above two. That becomes important, and I think now we can go to slide number 3. Sorry, the one before that. Right, taking into account the Constitutional Court judgment and the relevant sections of the Constitution, in our opinion, this intended bill falls short of the legal requirements as well as the expectations of the Muslim community. Firstly, the definition of marriage has been omitted. And in terms of, you can refer this to 1.5 of the Constitutional Court judgment, where it was actually made very clear that such a definition needs to be put in. And this is extremely important for the Muslim community because the definition may differ from other segments and other sectors who in turn have their right and their values, which must also be respected. But similarly, the Muslim community's view must be respected as well. We go to the next slide, please. Sorry, the next slide, right. Then there's a lack of clarity. in the bill. An example of that is subsisting marriages. The problem here is the way the bill has been framed. I can safely say that the largest majority of Muslims will not subscribe to this bill. Therefore, the status quo will remain. And what then is meant by the subsisting marriage? Because those that are not going to, fall within the realms of the bill, they will still be regarded as being married from an Islamic perspective, but can that be regarded as being a subsisting marriage? This needs to be clarified. Next slide, please. Right. Thirdly, fundamental matters of Islamic religion is ignored. The following examples will highlight this. It is not a requirement that consent should be obtained from an existing spouse or spouses to enter into further marriages. We have previously suggested that a requirement of informing the existing spouse should replace the obtaining of the consent. This then would enable the existing spouses to react, and if they have any grievances as to any of the rights being not being fulfilled, they then have the necessary information to take this further into the various courts. Next slide, please. Right. The right to refuse to conduct a marriage which composes the principle of Islam has been limited in this bill. The fact that the Department of Home Affairs has inadequate structures in place should not be a reason to deny people of religious convictions working within the government structures. And on this matter, I think SA, as well as the United Kingdom of South Africa, had made very strong responses to this, and we endorse that which they had actually said. And on this particular matter, I think it's important that we remember that the ordinary citizen should not bear the brunt of any possible administrative, let's call it inadequacies, and then they should therefore bear the brunt of those inadequacies. Then it should be borne in mind that not all marriage officers can conduct the Islamic rituals. Okay, I will not read this further. I will explain this basically. In Islam, the person that solemnizes the marriage, here I'm speaking of the spiritual or the religious aspect, need not be a marriage officer. If a parent is sufficiently equipped to do it, then that parent themselves would be able to conduct the solemnization of the marriage. And this then becomes problematic in that the bill, the way it reads, is that the marriage officer now takes on the role of inspector. Therefore, the marriage officers should be limited or restricted from an administrative view from the Home Affairs Office, where they may need any kind of assistance, collaboration, documentation from whoever has conducted the marriage, then that should be so. And in fact, 4SA yesterday recommended that there should be a distinction between the formalizing of marriages and the solemnization of marriages. And we are totally in agreement with that. The next slide, please. Okay, before we come then to the conclusion, the reason from what we have gathered from the various discussions, various individuals, the different oral presentations where the Department of Home Affairs went around from area to area, and basically from the conclusion of yesterday's session is that there's one single statute is there in order to facilitate something which is easy. We wish to dispute that, and the example which we will give is that of the tax legislations, or all those acts which fall under the tax umbrella. You have got the TAA, which is the Tax Administrative Act. You've got the Income Tax Act. You've got the VAT, the Value Added Tax Act, and you've got the tax with regard to PAYE and UIF. These are working well because they have been synchronized quite well. And therefore, Islamic Forum Azadville believes that if what we have at present, plus something which includes the Muslim marriages, if harmonized and synchronized properly, would therefore be able to accommodate what's very important for us within the Constitution, that is the principle of diversity, which I think Advocate Ismail Muhammad yesterday had expounded and explained very clearly. That I think becomes important. And in conclusion, because it does not meet the expectation of the Muslim community, we believe it does not meet the requirements of the Constitutional Court judgment, and we believe that it does not comply with various segments or readings of various segments of the Constitution itself. Islamic Forum Azad will not endorse this bill at all. And basically, I think what's important to remember here is this is almost unanimous, if not unanimous, within the Muslim community. We heard from United Ulama Council yesterday. We heard from Sunni Ulama Council earlier today. And from our interactions with various other organizations, it can be safe to say that what they call it, this bill, the way it stands, will not be accepted by the Muslim community. And we'll get back to the first point which I had raised, and that is in my introduction, and that is with regard to the reasons why we think there is a stagnation. I will now come to the point I raised earlier, and that is that my name is Faisal Amiruddin, but I'm also known as Faisal Kamka. Yesterday, United Ulama Council of South Africa had mentioned the loss of religious identity. This basically is why I've raised this is a typical example of what this can be. The surname Kamkar was removed and obliterated because of the colonialist style of administration which had taken place in the early 1900s when my grandfather had come, and therefore our surname became discarded. This is a question of the identity being thrown one side, and there is not, without giving any due respect to dignity and to honor. And this has happened with various other individuals as well. But the danger is that this goes beyond just individuals. It now comes to a group of people holding on to the Islamic faith. I thank you for this presentation. Once more, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm told that the South African Council of Churches is in the meeting. Can they confirm?
Good morning. Yes, we are in the meeting.
Thank you. You may proceed. Is there a presentation?
Oh,
ready?
are we supposed to? I thought we are scheduled for 11 o'clock.
Yes, so we are running early, and then I sent the message. So you are the last presenters as it stands.
Okay, just hold on, because the person is my colleague who's supposed to make a presentation, Advocate Mayor. If you can give us just a moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, we apologize. Can you, if that's possible, move us and then get somebody else, then we can present later? I'm just trying to get my colleague who's supposed to do this presentation. Unfortunately, I cannot get hold of her. So as I'm trying to get my colleague, maybe you can move us. We can do a presentation a bit later.
Okay, colleagues. I think given the where we are on the schedule and that we're running a little bit early, what I will do now is open the floor for clarification and questions from colleagues, and then we will see how that is going, and then take this presentation and then wrap up after that.
Thank you. I will try to get my colleague to come in. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'm taking hands from colleagues. I see Honorable Marchi. You may proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, Chairperson, I would like to thanks all the presenters for their comprehensive presentations. We really appreciate. I'll have some few questions. It's unfortunate that the other ones now will come at the end, whereas, yeah, okay, we'll see by then. Let me start by the Women's Legal Center. From the Women's Legal Center, I've got some few questions, maybe 2 or 1. Regarding registration deadlines, you recommended extending the registration period for marriages from 14 to 30 days. Could you elaborate on how the current 14-day requirement specifically disadvantages women in rural areas or those concluding customary marriages? And would 30 days be sufficient to overcome these cultural barriers? That is your question. And the second question, just pertaining on fit and proper criteria. You noted that the term fit and proper person for marriage officers in section 12, 1B, needs explicit definition beyond criminal records for fraud or theft. What specific criteria would you recommend be included to ensure marriage officers align with the bill's constitutional obligations, particularly regarding gender equity? Okay, so then you can then you can move along. Let me continue with the be true to me. I've got 1 question on polygamy definition. You argue that section 6 is unconstitutional because it limits polygamy to a male spouse. Is it fact that only 2 places in the world have such legal provision? Not sufficient reasons for this limitation? That is for be true to me. When you are, let me go to Sani Ulama Council of Gauteng. My question is on dissolution of marriage. You argue that a court decree of divorce does not nullify an Islamic marriage, and that the court must take the Islamic process into account. Are you proposing that the civil courts should have the power to pronounce a talaq, or that this civil divorce should be conditional upon the religious divorce being finalized first? I'm now on hate crimes working groups. hopefully, Chairperson, they are writing my questions. My question, the first question on hate crimes working group, is on vulnerable groups. You noted the bill makes no mention of refugees, asylum seekers, or migrants. What specific barriers do these groups currently face under the existing marriage laws that this bill fails to address? And that what specific clauses would you insert to remedy this? The other one for hate crimes is on gender neutrality. You called for equal treatment and protections for men and women, and inclusive language beyond changing husband, wife to spouse. Are these substantive clause in the current bill that you believe still enforce a gender binary that excludes non-binary or intersex individual? Now, my last ones are on, we are church. Oh, yes, we are the church. I was expecting that you will keep on quoting from the verses. Okay, I'm on polygamy safeguards. You mentioned that if the bill allows polygamous arrangements, it must guarantee equal legal protection for all spouses. Do you believe the current bill's requirement for a court-approved contract regulating the matrimonial property system is sufficient to provide this protection? The last one, on child's marriage, you welcome the minimum age of 18, but aged for clear enforcement mechanisms. What specific role do you see the church and faith communities playing in supporting enforcement of this ban, particularly in communities where underage marriage is culturally entrenched? I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Machi. Are there any other colleagues that have any questions for clarification? Then just two questions from my side in addition to what Honourable Machi said. First one to the Women's Legal Centre. You mentioned domestic partnerships and the need to legislate for those. There was a draft legislation in the last term of Parliament in this regard. My understanding is that a domestic partnership is constituted when the partners enter into a written cohabitation agreement, and in that agreement it gives them the flexibility to decide the arrangement of their partnership. So my question to you is, are you suggesting that we need to have domestic partnership law or also common law marriage law? Because at the moment there's no such thing as common law marriage, and we've heard on the hearings that I think they call it fat and sit. A lot of persons are unable to get married for often financial reasons, and then they live together. So are you suggesting that that also needs to be taken into account? And then if that is the case, how do you avoid unintended consequences? For example, somebody now all of a sudden being married or having an obligation, and this is financial obligations, without being aware that they are married or that they've now come into a time period where they enter into these obligations. And then to be true to me and the hate crimes working group, and I'll also ask Advocate Malakate at a later point to clarify this. There's a call to include pronouns throughout the legislation. There's also been many calls to retain the word husband for various different reasons, as well as calls to use the word spouse. a neutral word of the word spouse. So how do we balance these different requirements or requests on how we refer to partners in a marriage? How do we do that in your opinion? That's a question from me. I see South African Council of Churches hand is up.
Yes, Chair. Thank you so much. Sorry for the delay. We are ready, if that's fine with you. I know that you are taking the questions on the floor, but we are ready now to make our presentation. Will that be sufficient?
Yeah, so I think everybody, we've now, please note the questions that have been made, and then we'll take this presentation, and then if there's any other questions, we'll allow it. And then that allows us to have the discussion in one segment. So over to South African Council of Churches.
Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. Are you able to hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
You may proceed.
Hi, it's Corin Meyer on behalf of the South African Council of Churches. Chair, thank you for allowing us to make further submissions. We have noted that the many of the submissions we made on the previous draft on the green paper have been incorporated, and our submissions are 4 small points for your consideration. The second point is really the meaty one, Chair. But let me proceed immediately. The first one is just a general comment and concern, the fact being that the members felt that Christians make up the majority of the population, and it's really a point about balancing the majority and the minority interests. And that is really a general comment we make simply on the implementation, not so much on this bill as it stands and the act as it will come in, but perhaps in considering the regulations and the way that it's implemented after the event, after enactment. The second point relates to marriage officers, and of course that there are the Section 7 ex officio marriage officers, as well as then the Section 8 ones that are designated on application. There is a distinction made between the two in that the Section 8 designated marriage officers are entitled and permitted to decline solemnizing a marriage which is against their conscience, religion, and belief. But that is an option that is not open to the ex officio marriage officers. The concern being that as we make the point, we have many congregants that fall within the group, essentially the magistracy and employees of the Department of Home Affairs, and we feel that the protection of Sections 9 and 15 of the Constitution are in danger of not being provided to these employees, essentially. There is a further point that was raised in our deliberations, and that is the flip side of that not only could this provision discriminate or allow discrimination against existing employees of the magistracy and the Home Affairs officialdom, but it could also could work to exclude those persons from fulfilling their role and from perhaps furthering their careers within those structures, so that it's not only the existing employees but the prospective employees, and it could exclude them. The third comment we have, you may or may not know that we made fairly meaty submissions about the role of traditional councils in implementing the bill, and particularly not only the solemnization of marriage, but the registration process and so forth. We've in the ranks of the churches, it is felt that the traditional councils can play a meaningful role, especially in the registration of customary marriages and to augment the Department of Home Affairs functioning, especially in the rural context. And that is just something we wish to bring to your attention. And then also, of course, this is something that can be considered when regulations are ultimately promulgated. Then the fourth and last point is also simply a general observation. Of course, the age of majority 18 is now the age for permitted marriages of prospective spouses. And of course, we welcome that. We just repeat, there was a submission made in the Green Paper about a lack of uniformity around the age of consent. It is a related matter. Of course, marriage is very clearly defined and or provided for now, but the age of consent, as you are probably well aware, is a little bit more inconsistent, and that is just something that the Council of Churches would like to again highlight. But it isn't a concrete change we would like to see in the proposed bill, the proposed act. Thank you. That really winds up our 4 submissions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's sticking within time and making sure that we proceed smoothly. Colleagues, I'm going to open.
May I be excused? May I be excused? Or are there questions?
Okay. It's just a question session now. If you can just remember that.
Of course.
Are there any questions of clarifications from colleagues?
Yes, Chairperson.
Honorable Machi.
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you very much to South African Council of Churches. Mine is on the majority population. You expressed the consent that the Christian majority should not be impacted negatively, since the bill allows religious marriage officers to continue solemnizing marriages according to their own tenets.
Conscience, yes.
Yes, okay. In what specific ways do you fear the majority might be prejudiced by this legislation? The last one, it's on traditional councils. You support traditional councils being involved in registering customary marriages. Do you envisage them acting as designated marriage officers with the full authority to issue certificates? And do they currently have the administrative capacity to fulfill the reporting duties required by the department? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Machi, for the questions.
Just a second, sorry.
Okay.
Are there any other questions, colleagues? Okay, no other questions. Then I will first invite the South African Council of Churches to respond.
Thank you. On the last point that the Honourable Machin made, as I understand it, the traditional members of the traditional council are not part of the Department of Home Affairs, so they would be falling under the Section 8 category. And so, in other words, the simple answer to that is they could be, they might be, if they've applied and they fall under Section 8. The Section 7 ones are just magistrates and employees of the Department of Home Affairs. So at this stage, certainly the traditional council's members, individual members, would fall under the Section 8 group. And I think the question is whether we would support them becoming marriage officers. It's open for them to become marriage officers. What we envisaged in our comment at 3 is more a perhaps in regulations, not in this bill, but in regulations and in the implementation of the legislation, to that we express a support for involving the traditional councils in registration, in the registration process. And of course, it's open to them to become Section 8 participants and actual marriage officers. But the comment or the submission is more to assist in the official recording and a role of the Department of Home Affairs. I hope that answers the question. The other point that was raised about as I've said, the question of majorities and minorities, it is simply this act and
Eddie, is it me?
I think she has got connection issues.
Okay. Ms. Mayor, I suggest you turn off your video, as it appears there's some connectivity issue.
This is Reverend Molo, General Secretary of SACC. She's not been able to, I think she's even left the platform, or she's been kicked out of the platform.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll proceed with the others. If she returns, then she can continue. I'll now call on the Islamic Forum, Azadville, if there's any responses or additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From our side, what I think is important is that for the last 30 odd years, we have engaged with the various segments that were dealing with this Muslim Marriages Act, starting from the Muslim personal law to the MND, etc., etc. And we just wish to place on record that we are available at any given point of time. That obviously subject to proviso that we are available to be able to contribute further to this matter. This matter is extremely important, like I had mentioned in my presentation. 30 years plus is a long time, and we have not reached anywhere for as far as the Muslim community is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. The National House of Traditional Leaders, are there any, and Khoisan leaders, are there any comments or responses from your side? Okay, we return to the South African Council of Churches to continue the feedback.
Thank you. I'll put my audio on. Thank you, Chair. Or off, I mean.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was responding to the question from the Honourable Machi. It's what we are saying is that we're not pointing to a particular provision in the bill. We are simply saying that at all times we would like the legislature to be cognizant of the fact that of balancing majority and minority interests. That is all. But we most definitely support and welcome the bill for all its features that are very positive in terms of inclusion and streamlining of the legislation. Thank you, Chair. I would just like to bring to your attention Reverend Molo, who's our Secretary General, is battling to come in, and I don't know if he wanted to add anything, but I've received a message to say that he is battling to get on to the hearing. I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Can Mr. Molo confirm if you're able to give your inputs?
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. I was able to join and I heard the majority of the input. There's nothing more to add, really. I think you represented us well in reflecting on the issues that we put on the table. And you've responded quite comprehensively on the issue of the age of consent and the traditional leaders' role. And as you indicated, we are just adding on the substantive submissions we've made on the Green Paper itself. So we are not trying to relitigate what we've said in the past.
Thank you. I then call upon We Are the Church. Are there any responses or additional comments?
Chair, I was asked two questions, or two comments were made towards us. The first one was just a comment about how I thought the church's role in enforcing the ban on the age restriction, and how I thought we would be involved as the church in enforcing that age restriction. And very simply, my comment would be that as the church, our role would be very simply to support the people in the church, the congregation. And if that is a law, it is a law, and we would support the education of our community. We would support schools in educating people as to that law, and we would support people who were going against that law. And if that meant that we needed to assist young people in our communities that were being in any way abused or subjected to any form of abuse, we would support them in taking them to police stations, providing social work support, etc. So again, I speak as a pastor, a person looking out for the safety and care of our communities. That would be our role as a church. And yes, if that is the law, we would support the state in carrying that law through. And culturally, so if something is culturally entrenched, and there is a law that speaks against that, then that is going to be something that takes time to undo. But that we would step in and be involved in the education of undoing that culturally entrenched practice, so to speak. In terms of the property arrangements and the technicalities of that, I don't think I could even attempt to answer that. I don't have a legal background, and I think it would be disingenuous for me to even comment further. So apologies to the person that asked me that question. It would be stupid of me to even attempt to answer that. I am a pastor. My speciality is in people, not in technicalities around property law. My only comment would be that if there is equity and those on the margins are being looked out for, then I'm good to go. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I now call upon the Hate Crime Working Group for any responses or further comments.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to request if I could respond in written format by email, just because then I'd be able to go into more detail. But for today, let me respond to those present. So the first question was about should we use spouse or husband and wife as a way to refer to married couples. It is our position that we believe that spouse would be a better option, simply because then it does cover people that are transgender, that are intersex, that are gender non-conforming. I'm sure that you're aware that even when it comes to birth certificates, babies that are born, there's only a place on the birth certificate to have a male baby or a female baby. And yet, I know in KZN particularly that there's over 100 intersex babies that are being born. And so it just does provide us with a problem that there are people that are not provided for simply because we are referring to whether they are male or female. And it's similarly in the marriage contracts as well, that when we refer to male and female, it does become problematic on a number of different reasons. For starters, yes, with intersex people that do not fall into those categories. So it is better to say spouse when referring to both partners or multiple partners. And also it is preferable, like if we have a transgender person, let me use an example. Let's say a husband and wife get married, but later on maybe the husband transitions and is now considered a transgender woman, then it would not be correct to be referring to that person as a husband. So if initially we start off with referring to, instead of husband and wife, we refer to spouse and spouse, then we're not going to have that challenge at a later stage. So again, according to our presentation, we asked that both males and females be treated equally. So equal responsibilities, equal provisions, equal recognition should be the sort of the way that we treat spouses. So I don't see a problem going forward. Perhaps there is one that I'm not aware of, but I don't see a problem in using the word spouse. The next question we were asked was about migrants and asylum seekers. We have had persons that have had challenges regarding this, but we are aware that it's a complex issue where other challenges overlap as well, whether it's through documentation or other forms of discrimination or xenophobia. So we're aware that these overlap, and this is where I would say that I would not be able to give an in-depth response here, because we're also asked to provide suggestions. So our member organizations that specialize in serving migrant populations would be a better fit to do this. So perhaps I could ask them to provide that more detailed response. Yes, and that comes to the end of my reply. Would I send a written reply to Eddie, or who would I send the email to?
Yes, that's fine. You can send it to Eddie.
Okay, thank you.
Then I call on the Sunni Ulama Council Gauteng. Any responses or last comments?
Thank you. I'm not from a legal background, so obviously I cannot give technical details, but what I understand, being Islamic theologian, that obviously Muslim marriages have different types of termination or dissolving the marriage. And as I remember, if I recall well, that United Ulama Council of South Africa, they did some submission in this regard. So obviously they are even dividing property, maintenance rights, etc., inheritance, that every religion may have, that different rules in that or laws in that. So same Islam also have that. That's what I wanted to only respond. Obviously, I cannot give all the technical details as I don't have a law background. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I then call on B, True to Me.
Thank you. I think the first question that was posed around poly relationships and how does that fit into international law or international recognition? I think South Africa is a unique country with our constitution that we recognize that minorities and marginalized people are not discriminated against, and that other countries and colonial laws are used against marginalized and minority people. And so to sort of use the, well, everyone else is doing so, we can do it as well logic, when it's a human rights violation or it is limiting other people's rights, is enough of a reason not to follow the rest. The world followed that the majority of the people believed in slavery for centuries, and we know that that was wrong. And so I'm not sure how to answer that question. I hope that answers the honourable member that we also have a constitution that says you may not discriminate on gender or sexual orientation, etc. And so having laws that are discriminatory or limiting, as they currently do, to us is a no-go word. The question around balancing words, we want to just echo what Kim said from the hate crimes working group, that the law, that words can change, people's definitions can change, as we indicated in our submission, that particularly trans people who transition and have a gender marker change, that they could then change from wife to husband or husband to wife, or may be non-binary or intersex. And so again, this may seem statistically minority, but it is still a substantial number of people. And so we think that gender neutral terminology is important. And so the question posed was that the word husband is needed. And again, that would form part of our submission, that it is creating discriminatory or exclusive options from a gender point of view, which we would request not to be there. I hope that answers that. And then just to add the question that Kim was asked around foreign nationals and asylum seekers, that we do know that they are discriminated against by Home Affairs, that often it is seen as marriage of citizenship or convenience or something by a bride kind of thing. And often we know that isn't the case. We won't deny that that never happens, that by a bride or a spouse, but in most cases it doesn't. That documentation is a problem. We also just want to further remind everyone that this is around not only marriage, but other human rights, and that foreign nationals who are trans are not recognized by Home Affairs for the option to change their gender marker. And so this creates secondary problems, including to access to marriage. And so that we do have other systemic challenges that need to be addressed by Home Affairs to be able to accommodate trans and gender diverse foreign nationals who are asylum seekers who are unable to change their gender marker in our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Women's Legal Center.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So with the first question that was posed about the 30-day period, so it is a fact that women in rural areas find it challenging to actually reach a Home office for various reasons, right? It also has financial implications and the location of the offices. If you're asking someone in rural South Africa whether they should rather buy bread or take a taxi to go register the marriage, they would right out tell you that they would rather allocate that money towards getting basic household needs. So even with that 30 days, we're just saying from a perspective of, we know that customary marriages in particular can take place over a period of 30 days, depending on where the parties that are getting married live and the different ceremonies and rituals that need to take place. So to us, a 30-day period would be sufficient for the parties who wish to get married in terms of customary law to perform what is necessary and still have the time to register their marriages. But also, it is noteworthy to just note that even with the RCMA, even though they had put a 24-month limitation to allow for marriages before the RCMA to be registered, till today, we still have unregistered customary marriages. And for us, it's very, very important to implore on Home Affairs to prioritize civic education as well as roadshows for registration, especially in areas where they would not find it easy to go and find a Home Affairs office and register their customary marriage, for example. And I think the other barrier also is having to travel all the way with witnesses. So I think that the 30-day is obviously not going to be sufficient, but it affords prospective spouses an opportunity to coordinate with everyone necessary for the registration process to be a reality. And then with regards to fit and proper, it is really not for us to come and really dictate what the legislation should really look like word for word. I mean, we can borrow from existing legislation the different criteria that are used and applied when you're looking for tribunal members, for example. But in our submission, we just made an example that, for example, a fit and proper person cannot be someone who has a criminal record for theft or fraud or sexual offenses, for example. So I think for us, it was just to ensure that we have someone who's well versed in the law, because as much as you are a registering marriage officer, you need to provide guidance to a particular extent. And if you're not well versed in the law, and if you have a criminal record, it could actually hinder the way you're going to execute your duties and obligations. And with regards to the domestic partnerships, so there was previously a bill that the South African Law Reform Commission had developed, but it never took any effect, despite courts having to deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis. So I think for us, what's important is that we want people to have legal certainty, even though they are not in a position to afford to go to a lawyer and get a life partnership agreement drafted, right? Our law clinic is inundated with queries from women who actually want to leave their relationships but are not in a position to do so because there are no legal consequences that will come from that. We know that the only time like your domestic partnership would be recognized is in the instance of death, where you can go to the master's office and ask for the Banywa judgment to be applied. But currently, we have women who live in informal settlements in rural areas who don't have access. And I think the other main thing that we'd also like to make is that these universal partnership agreements that we talk about, that people go to lawyers for, they are from a law of contract perspective, but they're not grounded in family law and recognition of diverse family structures. And that is why for us, we are saying that it is important to include a provision so that should people not be in a position to afford to get the legal contract drafted, but they have legal certainty and then they know that they are protected in terms of the law. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any follow-ups to these responses? Then in that case, I will call upon Advocate Malakati for any legal clarification or comments from the Home Affairs side.
Thank you, Chair. And good morning to you, Chair, as well as the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. And let me also greet all the presenters that presented today and thank them for the oral submissions that they have made. And as it was indicated earlier by yourselves and the chair of the Portfolio Committee, we are at a stage where we are receiving these oral representations as well as the written representations that have been submitted, with a view to looking at them and seeing how best we can then deal with them. So also we also just need to, we're not responding to what the presenters have provided today, but just to provide clarity to some of the issues that we feel that it may have been misconstrued or misread or not understood. So we're just providing clarity. And the first point that we wanted to provide clarity on, it's on the submission that says we need to respect people's rights to belief, to religion, as it is contained under Section 15 and 31 of the Constitution. And as far as it relates to ex officio marriage officers. So what we just need to submit is that you would recall that there was an amendment to the Civil Union Act, which was promulgated in 2020, and the bill as it is now, it's following that amendment to the Civil Union Act. But more specifically, that if you were to look at the reasons that were advanced in that private member's bill, simply to indicate that as a public servant or as a state, we bear the responsibility to protect and to ensure that those who are recipient of the protection and the rights that are contained in the Bill of Rights fully enjoy the rights that are entrenched in the Bill of Rights. And therefore, as a state, when we have bear that obligation, by extension, public servants also, because they act on behalf of the state, therefore they bear the responsibility to protect and to ensure that the rights are fully enjoyed by the individuals. And therefore, as the state, we also bear the responsibility to ensure that we do not have any discriminatory practices. And therefore, that we as public servants, we should therefore be providing public service without fear or without favor, and also not invoking discriminatory practices, because if we are dealing with these matters related to the marriage bill, we need to be dealing with them in recognition of the Bill of Rights, but as well as the constitutional principles. And therefore, we cannot then say we would not be able to provide public service to this particular group of society, and we will do so. And Chair, perhaps just to illustrate what we are submitting, it's simply to say, and this you would have heard, it's mostly coming from the Christian community. You can only imagine if a Moses, who is a public servant, but who believes in something different to Christianity, and a Christian person comes to get a public service from myself, and they'd say, I would not be able to provide that service on the basis that you're a Christian, and therefore I do not provide my belief, or either cultural or otherwise. I cannot do so. I think it would be very chaotic and very frustrating. Hence, this viewpoint that as public servants we should be providing public service without doing that, and therefore ex officio members. I think the other thing that we just wanted to submit is that we have had submissions relating to the use of a language that is gender neutral, and we would like to submit that all throughout the bill we do use gender neutral language. It is only in one clause which is related to the particular context where we use the words that have been that are being challenged, husband, where we use husband and wife. It's only in one particular clause, and that clause has a context to it, and there is a reason, the rationale behind that, so that we do not have an unintended consequences related to that. But we'll fully expatiate on our views when we respond to the portfolio committee on the written and oral submissions that we have had. And also we just want to submit to, and this was the submission of representation from Women Legal Trust Center relating to the compulsory registration. And we say, and if you look at what is happening currently, if you look at the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, it has left it without requiring that we need that there's compulsory registration. And you're correct that the RCMA provision as it is, and even in the bill, this bill, the non-registration of a marriage does not affect the validity of the marriage, but it is important that the marriages are registered in time, so that we then, the marriage certificate provides the necessary protection in the event that something happens, which you would then be required to prove that indeed you were married to that individual. So registration of those marriages becomes very critical, so that to offer that protection, because you then have evidence to show that you are married. So although we are saying it needs to be compulsory, we do recognize the fact that there may be instances where the registration could not have happened. And again, you're correct that there are challenges. Since November 1998, the Minister of Home Affairs has been extending the period, the 3-year period, and requesting people to come to the Department of Home Affairs to register their customary marriages, so that the necessary protection that is required or that may be required at a later stage are then provided. But we have not been people have not been taking up the request and to do that. But now we simply trying to indicate that it has to be compulsory. We do take note that on the number of years, but the number of years that you see related to 14 days, it's an obligation that is then granted to a marriage officer who would have solemnized marriages. This is a designated marriage officer that you bear the responsibility to ensure that you submit the marriage registers that you would have done within the period of 14 days. And you are also quite correct that whether or not we extend the dates, the number of days from 14 to 30, if the reason becomes what you have indicated, it then becomes an issue of saying, how do we ensure that indeed people are aware of the impediments of not registering the marriages, and that it becomes important for them to register the marriage, so that they're then issued with the marriage certificate offer the particular protections. I think, Chair, the other issues or in relation to other representations, the department would then be, as we progress, be able to provide further responses in relation to the both written and oral submissions that have been made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you to Advocate Malakate, and thank you to each and every one of our presenters today. I think the dignified manner in which you presented your views without attacking the views of others is very important and very welcome. I'm now going to call upon Honorable Machi to make the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much to the presenters. What we are saying, Chairperson, is quite correct. What we used to emphasize, the issue of respecting one another, they did to that exactly. As it has been alluded, even yesterday, the Chairperson alluded that we have already traveled about 8 provinces. We are only left with the Limpopo now. So as we have been in the other provinces for public hearing, we listen very carefully from their views and opinions. And our respective officials were capturing their inputs, of which all of them were important. As you are also presenting, putting your views, we also respect them, and they are all important. And the officials are also capturing them. From here, the report will be formulated, and that report will be debated in the National Assembly. We as the committee are not we are not going to do anything on our own. But in the National Assembly, there are all political parties. So all the inputs which will be forming part of the report will be debated. After that step, we will forward that deliberated already report to the NCOP, which is the second house. In the NCOP, they will also deliberate according to their legislative processes. It will be then forwarded to the president for his assent, which is the signature, because that is the constitutionally mandate for South African legislative process. Thereafter, it will be a law after the president have signed. For now, we've got to thank everyone, even you, Chairperson, thank you very much. All the attendees, the listeners, we all appreciate for their commitment, giving themselves time to listen to what the people are saying, as we have been busy collecting the information from the citizens. Since it is still called the public hearing, it's not a law yet. We want to find out what are the citizens are saying about this marriage bill. Thank you very much. to everyone. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Machi. And on that said, everybody, I declare this meeting adjourned.